The Flash 75, Mark Waid, writing with Greg LaRocque on the art. This is kind of an issue that, like, because I read this last week, because we were supposed to record last week, and I'd read like half the books, and I skimmed the ones I hadn't read. And I came back to this one, and I was like, I don't remember like half this issue. And I think the reason for it is because this issue is almost entirely the ending. In terms of like what's important and what the dramatic weight comes from, the idea that Barry is starting to get a bit more unhinged, and the first big sign that he's not really Barry, or if he is Barry, there's something very wrong with them, is this idea that, so we have these like these guys who are like stealing tech from like labs and stuff like that. The opening's a really exciting sequence where the train derails and like we have two of the Flashes trying to like stop the train with the tornado arms to slow it down, and it's not quite enough. But then the third one comes in. It's all three of them, Jay, Barry, and Wally, all together, and they're able to stop the train. It's a really fun, exciting sequence. The art's delightful, really good stuff. But they're tracking down more of these guys stealing stuff, and there's a whole big moment where they're surrounding this lab that they're all in, and there's a moment where Wally gets like covered in rubble or blasted or whatever, and one of the guys says, "Oh, I think we killed the Flash," and Barry is like unhinged and he's like beating the shit out of this guy, and Wally kind of takes him off. But we find out in the next couple of pages, Wally in his narration talks about how he can't quite believe what he actually heard Barry say, which we didn't hear in the first time we saw this scene. This is kind of it saves it for the cliffhanger, which I think is very smart. I think this is a good, smart bit of writing. Is the idea that this is getting at Wally. It's in his head. We don't know what it is yet, but then we hear it for the final panel, which is what Barry's actually upset about. He's not angry that Wally's dead. He's angry that someone called him the Flash, because he says, "No, I'm the Flash," and it's a sign that something's wrong. It's like, oh wait.
It's got like a double thing where there's the I'm the Flash, because part of it is the, like I say, the identity of his legacy here, which again is neatly seated earlier in the issue, because after the train, there's a kid that wants an autograph, I think, and he's like, "Hey, maybe someday you'll follow in my footsteps too." And he's looking over at Wally, the idea that, hey, there's someone else can be the Flash, and it plays nicely at that point. But then the other element of it is maybe there's a genuine worry from Barry that he's not actually Barry. If that makes sense, like it's not just the identity.
I hadn't thought of that.
Issue.
Yeah, I took it as sort of this angry, out of character person who, despite what else he said in the issue, is actually extremely like egotistical and jealous and livid at the idea that someone else would consider anyone but him the Flash.
Yeah. I do think it's both, to be honest with you.
The other scene, though, that I that set this up as well is a conversation between Wally and Linda over breakfast, where they're talking about, it's a little bit confusing. It was all being called the Flash at the same time, and there's a bit of a meta joke here where she's suggesting other names for him, and she's like, "Well, what about Lightning, Cheetah, Pegasus?" And then there's a little Marvel joke where she says, "What about Quicksilver?" And he's like, "Very taken." I'm like, okay,
yeah.
very.
After Cheetah, he says taken.
Yes, very good. But
and then she says Mr. Zip, and they have a bit of fun. And I actually think the art in these couple of pages is fantastic. The home life stuff in this issue, just this stuff here out of costume, is probably the best art in the issue.
Yeah, especially he goes to tickle her. If I have a complaint about the art, and it's not really a complaint, it's more my eyes. But so there's a moment in the middle of this page where he's tickling her, and her legs kind of coming up as she's laughing, and it kind of like overlaps some of the other panels a little bit. The layout's really good. The only complaint I have is that there's a sort of panel that's sort of just behind her ass, right? Which is a close up of, I guess it's her chest actually. Now I'm looking at it, but whatever.
Yeah.
But it's to show he's tickling the abdomen is the point of it, but. Because of like where this like pink crop top is and the blue shorts she's got on, my eyes for some reason thought the legs were coming from that little panel, and I thought, what's going on here? What's this weird body?
I'm like, because whenever I read this, that didn't like register in my brain. It just thankfully it registered properly. I get what you're getting at. I've definitely had that in other comics before. but I can't even see what you were seeing. Like I can't see
Well,
the
it
link.
looked like it was confusing me, and then I sort of took a step back and went, "Oh, the legs are coming from up there." I was like, "Okay, that's where the legs are. Okay, that's fine. That's fine."
You know what I think might have caused you your problem here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think now seeing what you've
It's
had,
because the
I think there is actually a problem. It's the lettering bubble.
the bubbles read across the way into the other panel, so I took that as a new line of like content.
There's that, and I think also just the fact that the middle bubble that's over her body and her arm physically cuts over her body because of where her arm is. So you see the top half above the panel, above the bubble, sorry, and then the belly and the leg are underneath. So it looks completely separate because of the placement of the bubble. I think if you shift the bubble just slightly to the right so that you can still see some of her body behind the bubble, you don't have that disconnect.
Yeah. It's not a big deal. It was a minor thing, but it was something that kind of threw me off a little bit when I saw it. But yeah, there was also a scene where Barry's acting a little bit weird. He's sort of in an alleyway, kind of looking for something. He's not quite accepted, like things, and he's because they find him just kind of there, right? He's just kind of like wandering.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, there was something. He goes, oh, I had this feeling that there was something here could provide a clue, and it does. As they're leaving, there is a close up of what looks. I don't know, it's a bit of paper, but it says Alan on it. Clearly, it's the one word I can make out.
And then the villains come out in a technodrome from this lab, where they all speed over to go. And that's where we get to the ending we talked about. There's a lot of action in that scene, though, of them like dodging laser beams and
I think that's why this issue is sort of forgettable in a lot of ways, because when you were saying the start, I was just kind of flicking through it myself because I also read this a week ago, and I panicked for a second. I was like, I don't remember any of this for the first like 7 or 8 pages. Like, did I actually read this? Because I think you have 2 of these action sequences which are basically the same, like the one with the train and then the one here at the end. They're very interchangeable.
The funny thing is, though, is that I don't think like the issue is actually still very effective. And that final page, now that I'm looking at it again, I think the other thing it does here that's really smart is that part of what that earlier scene was when the tickling happened is that we're talking about him liking tacos a lot, right, and eating a lot of tacos. This scene has Linda making him tacos, but he's kind of slouching and he's not happy. It's like the total opposite of that previous happy scene. So the art and the visuals also go along with the idea that something's really weighing on him. So it really sells the build up to that final moment where you get to see Barry scream, "I'm the Flash!" Like so.
Yeah, and there's the moment where Barry's like, "You did what?" And it has this big, massive panel of just this boom. He's like, oh, he's caused a sonic boom, but the panel of it itself covers about half the page. Is absolutely fantastic. It's this yellow background, and the big boom in the purple lettering kind of is at this angle. It takes over the page. It takes completely over the panel. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. So I actually think it's a good issue overall. It's just that it kind of has just some generic action, which looks good. Like the action is solid.
It's fine while you're reading it.
But the main point of the issue is the ending and the couple of scenes that kind of set up that ending really well, and those are really good and are really well done. Because when I was skimming through it, I was like, oh yes, of course, it had this big ending, and that was kind of what the memorable part was. And I think that's okay, because when we go to the next issue, I'm sure that the only thing that's really important from this issue that we have to remember is this big moment towards the end where Barry yelled this out. The people that were beating up and what they were doing is probably not going to be that important or relevant. And if it is end up being important and relevant, I'm sure they'll set up who they are again. It's not going to be something they're going to expect us to have an in-depth knowledge of.
I agree. I think in the 22 or so pages, there are 7 or 8 good to great pages. And those pages are really good, or, like I say, absolutely great, that make the issue worth it overall and still make it a solid issue. And the action is fine while you're reading it. It doesn't do anything wrong. And like I said, it has that one panel that is particularly good. But when you think back on the issue, or, you skim through, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of action that's just kind of there. That kind of, it feels a little bit padded.
What are you rating it?
I'm going to give it a 7.5. I think it would have been an 8 if it been a bit tighter.
Yeah. The things it's good at, it's really good at, is the weird thing here. And then the things that it's not doing as greatly, it's still doing solidly. It's not... So... Yeah, I don't want to keep agreeing with you, but 7.5.
Solid.
It's kind of just the right score.